is a report on the GemeinKat cataloging project that's been underway from the Moravian Music Foundation for a number of years. I'm Nola Reed Knouse, the director of the Moravian Music Foundation, and have had the joy of overseeing this project and watching very, very competent people bring it home. So we've been working on this since around 2008, but you'll hear more about that in a little ways, but we're about to bring it home. So this is where we're going. GemeinKat fits the Moravian Music Foundation's mission and vision extremely well. The Music Foundation's mission, of course, is to preserve, share, and celebrate Moravian musical culture. In the preservation area of that mission, GemeinKat is keeping the hold of the bibliographic data that was incomplete or only on paper copies. Before this project, the catalog of the Moravian Music Foundation was a state-of-the-art, a 1960s state-of-the-art card catalog with a great deal of information on every card, including the musical incipits, that first few measures of the music that tells you which setting of Sing to the Lord a New Song we are looking at. So we will be preserving that bibliographic data. In sharing, we are sharing information that was only available by word of mouth or by visit to Winston-Salem, where the only complete copy of the card catalog existed. And I must say there that even there, that copy was not complete. Over the years, we have found individual collections that were never cataloged, or that were cataloged and the cards were never filed into the card catalog. So we will be sharing a great deal of information through GemeinKat. Celebrating. How can you celebrate? How can you perform music that you cannot see, that you do not know exists? The holdings must be visible in order to be accessed and researched and then to be performed. So we are preserving, sharing, and celebrating Moravian musical culture with this project. What's in the collections that we are now preserving, sharing, and celebrating, that we are revealing? Printed books dating from the 16th century forward. Sacred music, manuscript and printed by Moravians and by many other composers, European composers, American composers from the 17th century forward. Secular music, both manuscript and printed, some of it the only known copies in the world. Instrumental music, vocal music. Concert programs, letters, and other documents surrounding musical performances. In some cases, we can see just exactly which pieces were performed on which date in which location. Letters that record the history of the pieces or that tell about various performances, other documents that support the musical performance and its history. Certain items of significance that are in the collections, most of these we knew we had before we began the GemeinKat project, but now they're visible to the rest of the world. The only known copies of symphonies and trio sonatas by J.C.F. Bach, one of the sons of Johann Sebastian Bach. The only known copies. The score and the parts used in the 1811 performance of Haydn's Creation in Bethlehem, the performance that may have been the first American performance of this work. You know, firsts are hard to prove. You just think may have been the first. First editions of works by Beethoven, by Stephen Foster, and a number of other composers. One of 10 known copies of the first printing of the Star-Spangled Banner. Someday we'll tell you, in fact, there may be a video on our website where you can see something about how is that known to be the first edition. It's comforting in a way. A great deal of music by European composers, again, sacred and secular music. This is the musical culture out of which the Haydns and the Mozarts rose to prominence. This is the sort of surrounding musical milieu that they worked in. A great many accomplishments have already taken place based on the music in Moravian Music Foundation's holdings. Over 100 doctoral studies have been completed. Countless articles and presentations have been written and made public. Well over 600 Moravian anthems have been commercially published, over 100 in the Moravian Music Foundation's own Moravian Star Anthem series, and we're still going. There are several in the pipeline right now. There's a scholarly series of critical editions being published by Stegline Press, Musical Treasures from Moravian Archives. 4 volumes have been published so far, and there are several others in the works. Music that would not be available without the Moravian Music Foundation. 23 compact disc recordings of music in our collection. We are working now to bring these online and make them downloadable, searchable, audible on Spotify or Amazon Music, Apple Music, and other folks have issued recordings as well. Moravian Music Foundation is not the only agency to issue recordings based on these collections. 26 Moravian music festivals. Now, the Moravian Music Foundation did not sponsor all of these. We began sponsoring the festivals in 2010, but 26 have taken place, and the Music Foundation prepared the music for all of them. I'm not quite sure about that. 26 festivals have almost taken place. The 26th festival, part 1, happened in the summer of 2021 as an all virtual event. Part 2 is scheduled for the summer of 2022 as an in-person event. If you want to know more about that, go to moravianmusicfestival.org. With the GemeinKat project, we can identify the composer and the title of specific works much more accurately. Many of the works in our collections were previously identified as minuet. It's in D major. It's in 3/4 time. It has 36 measures. Which D major minuet with 36 measures? With the research our cataloging folks have been doing, they have been able to identify composer and title for a great many of these works. So far, 26 collections are completely cataloged. That's all of the largest collections, with over 22,000 records in GemeinKat, the catalog itself, and nearly 5,000 records in RISM. Now, I'm going to tell you more about each of those in a little bit, but there's a lot of data out there online that was not available before this project. Where are we now? There are 4 access points to the work of this project. GemeinKat itself is the records, has the records for each item in our holdings, each of the symphonies of J.C.F. Bach, each of the anthems of Johann Friedrich Peter, each of the chorales in the Gregor Chorale book, that sort of thing. That's individual records for each item. This is working through OCLC's WorldCat. So scholars and researchers all over the world have access to these. RISM, that I mentioned earlier, is an international online inventory of musical sources. This is where scholars go looking for music manuscripts and early imprints from around the world. This is where the musical incipits are, those first few measures of music that tells you the specific theme. Those are in the RISM catalog, and the RISM records are being linked both ways with the GemeinKat records. So if you go in through GemeinKat, you will be able to link to RISM and vice versa. A third access point is the finding aids that are on our website, moravianmusic.org. For each collection, a finding aid, it presents the 30,000-foot view. How was this collection assembled? What was its cultural context? Who are the major composers represented? How might it have been used? How many works are there? When are the dates, the date range of the collection? And something about how to find specific items in it. Much of this information had been available in little bits and pieces all over around the Moravian Music Foundation. Much of it has had to be assembled and written specifically for this project. So this is new research, new understandings of our collections that have not been so clearly understood before. And the fourth access point into the collection is a resource called Archive Grid. This is where researchers go online looking for primary source materials when they don't exactly know what they're looking for or where to go. But those on Archive Grid, if you enter Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, our finding aid for the Bethlehem Congregation Collection shows up there. And you can get to that and then see, that's what I'm looking for. So these 4 access points are key to scholars and researchers and performers being able to find the holdings that we have, that we are so proud of caring for. How did we get to where we are now? This project has been on our radar since the mid-1990s. I believe it was in 1994, we set a big, hairy, audacious goal to work towards computerizing the catalog. In 2008, we were able to do our first cataloging with an outside vendor, Backstage Library Works, and we received early grants for the project. Now, we didn't do nothing between 1994 and 2008. In between times, we began some basic work in the research library, in the books, as we were deciding which books would move to the Archie Davis Center in 2001, which would be better housed with another agency. We gathered all the material, the information about each of those books so that cataloging those would be easier. We did other beginning to plan and think and wonder about what could we do. By 2008, though, we had a little bit of funding set aside so that we could do our first work with an outside vendor and begin the project in earnest. But that's all we could do. We applied for major grants between 2008 and 2014. In every case, we made the first cut and we did not make the second cut. But in 2014, a very generous woman, Louise Dieterle Nippert, when she had died in 2012, she left us a portion of her estate. There are so many stories about Mrs. Nippert. She was particularly generous in the Cincinnati area to the Cincinnati Orchestra and Cincinnati Conservatory of Music. But she had known Thor Johnson in the 1970s. Anyone, if you know your Moravian music history, Thor Johnson was a key player for us, conducting Moravian music. And if you knew, he was the son of a Moravian minister. If you knew Thor Johnson in the 1970s, you were going to know about Moravian music. So we think that's the connection. But when Mrs. Nippert died, she left us a portion of her estate, which allowed us not only to bring Eric Salzwedel on board as business manager for the Moravian Music Foundation, but to hire Barbara Strauss and Dave Bloom full-time to put this project on the front burner and get moving. And it has been full speed ahead ever since. In 2016, though, we discovered that we actually could encode the musical incipits with RISM. That had been a concern for us because the GemeinKat portion through OCLC did not allow us to encode the musical incipits. So you might see Sing to the Lord a New Song, and you find all the information about it, but is that the specific setting of this that I want? Now we discovered we could encode the musical incipits and not lose all that work. That was the first indication also that this project was going to cost a lot more than we thought it was going to. In 2018, Dave Bloom was named research librarian at the Moravian Music Foundation. This is an ongoing position. His salary is included in the foundation's operating budget. He's not through cataloging. He is still cataloging with GemeinKat, but he is also going to be responsible moving forward with maintaining that catalog, and he assists a great many researchers and students throughout the process. In 2021, we focused on our work in the Bethlehem collections and began the process of reviewing to how to bring this project to completion. And we are getting close. 2022 to 2024, we'll see the final completion of the project and a celebration of some sort, perhaps a scholarly symposium and concert based on the things we have discovered throughout this project. At this point, after this point, the catalog will be maintained, as I mentioned, by the research librarian. There are several steps to bring us to this completion in 2022 to 2024. We have final collections to catalog, 14 collections in Winston-Salem, 2 are fairly large, and 8 mostly smaller collections in Bethlehem. We have 2 years of part-time staff work, plus an additional year of project manager Barbara Strauss's work to complete the RISM loading and getting the musical incipits linked with the GemeinKat records. And as I mentioned, a celebration or symposium to mark the completion of the project. We are indeed bringing this home. It has been an expensive project. The total cost will top $1 million, and we're not far from that right now. Much of this was given through grants. A great deal came from Mrs. Nippert's bequest. And individuals have been very generous, and we have been good stewards of that money. This is a milestone for the Moravian Music Foundation. This completes the cataloging work that was begun in the 1970s, but it brings us to 21st century cataloging standards and accessibility. The results of this project put the Moravian Music Foundation at the forefront of the musical world for research and for availability of music for performance. This is a very, very impactful event for the Moravian Music Foundation, one which we should all be proud of being part of. What can I do? Try it. Go to moravianmusic.org, look for GemeinKat, look for resources for scholars. Friends, you can't break it. Get in there and explore and see what you find. Search for Johann Friedrich Peter. Search for J.C.F. Bach. Search for Haydn. Search for Beethoven. Search for August 13th. Get in there and play and see what you see. You can contribute. Gifts to the Moravian Music Foundation are fully tax deductible, and you can earmark the gift for GemeinKat or a cataloging project. You may give, of course, through our website. There's a donate button right there that will take you to give through PayPal, which is secure. You may write a check. You may call our office to give your credit card information over the phone. Gifts may be made in honor or in memory of someone. And the third thing you can do is to make sure your colleagues at colleges and universities know about the Moravian Music Foundation and these wonderful holdings. There are so many more research projects waiting to be done. Several projects are underway right now. A number of performances have happened because people internationally have seen our holdings on GemeinKat. So be involved, celebrate with us this wonderful project. Thank you for whatever support you can give. If that's emotional support, if that's talking about the Moravian Music Foundation and its impact and its holdings, if it's a contribution, whatever you can do in support of this project and the Moravian Music Foundation is greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for your interest. God bless you all.